Hello, my name is Alton Stockton, and this is my journey with neuroinvasive West Nile virus, including encephalitis and meningitis. Claire and I have been married for 37 years. We have 2 grown daughters, Nikki and Kristen, and 4 grandchildren. Oh, let's not forget about our 4-legged spoiled Maltipoo, Sophie. I retired at the end of 2020 and now ready to begin our next phase of our lives. So, here is my journey with West Nile virus. I was bitten by a mosquito Labor Day weekend 2017. It takes 6 to 10 days for the West Nile virus symptoms to appear. Within a week, I started having severe headaches, and several days later, I went to my doctor since I had no relief. He said I had the flu. A week or so later, I went to the emergency room with severe headaches again. Again, I was told I had the flu and went sent home to recuperate. This is where my journey begins. On a Tuesday morning in mid-September 2017, I woke up with no use of my right leg. I was admitted into the hospital with the first round of tests conducted: spinal taps, MRIs, checks, x-rays, etc. The following morning, I lost use of my left arm and shoulder. Within 38 to 46 hours, they diagnosed me with neuroinvasive West Nile virus, which included both encephalitis and meningitis. At this point, I had little use of my left shoulder and no use of my right leg, and had lost 15 pounds. After 6 days in the hospital, I was transferred to the first of many rehab centers. I had to learn how to use a wheelchair and build up endurance again. I work with physical, occupational, and speech therapists daily to learn the basic functions again. 3 weeks later, I was transferred to my second rehab center, where I lived for another 4 weeks. Again, my daily routine was PT, OT, and speech therapy for 5 to 6 hours each day. I lived in a small apartment on site, learning how to transfer from a wheelchair to a bed to a chair. Also, I learned how to shower, change clothes, all manner of things that I took for granted a few weeks before. Because this rehab was over 60 miles from our home, my wife Clara could only visit on weekends. A month later, I was able to go home as an in-home patient, still in a wheelchair but managing it quite well. I am now in my 3rd rehab center. A shuttle would pick me up and take me every weekday at 8 a.m. and bring me home every day in the afternoon at 4. I continued with my routine of PT, OT, and speech therapy. Small progress was being made, especially with my shoulder. I got fitted for the first of 3 braces while I was there. I had another CAT scan and it came out clean. Great news. Around Christmas, I started using a walker for the first time. A great Christmas present to me. Learning to drive was one of my therapies. Took lots of classes to refresh my memory on how to drive. 3 months after my diagnosis, I drove for the first time, and yes, there were no accidents. In early 18, I started my 4th rehab assignment. I was told that I would never have full function of my leg again. Boy, was I discouraged. But I told them they did not know me. Let's get to work. So the next day, I started going to our local gym and working out again. I was able to work out and use a gym pool. Eventually, I was able to volunteer at church again with the use of a walker. 6 months after diagnosis, I looked at a brace that would go from my hip to my foot and allowed me to stand for the first time in many months. I was able to drive myself to the rehab for the first time. Lots of firsts during this time. Also, I took my first airline flight to California for a sales meeting. Everything went great. I was wearing the new hip to brace, toe brace that I was able to use with my walker just to get around. Shortly thereafter, I started to use crutches. 9 months after original diagnosis, I learned that I'd always have to use a brace, that my leg was not responding as much as I'd hoped. That was a sad, sad day for me. Oh well, let's get back to work. Shortly afterwards, I started a discussion of getting a computer brace. This is the type of brace that has a mini processor attached to a brace that monitors and anticipates my leg movements. I met with the OtterFox folks to see if my leg would be strong enough to support the brace. Yes, I did. God is good. Within a week of being told I was qualified for the computer brace, I realized word that it would cost $90,000. And yes, folks, insurance didn't pay for it. As my 1-year anniversary was approaching, our local newspaper reached out for me for an interview that would coincide with the actual anniversary of my West Nile diagnosis. At this time, I was using 2 crutches when I was out and about and using one crutch at night when I was at home. I was able to stand in the shower. About the same time, our local ABC affiliate would do a segment on my rehab journey. While at rehab, I started to do more volunteer work again. I was able to drive to Houston, 4 hours away, by myself to visit friends and family, and later on flew to Colorado for a sales meeting. Shortly after returning from this work trip, I bought a cane. All went well. In the fall, Claire and I took a 7-day cruise in the Caribbean with friends. It felt good to be doing what we love to do, cruising with our friends. After our cruise, I was fitted for my new computer brace made by OtterBox. Now, we have to wait for the brace to be built. Patience, Alton, patience. While waiting for the brace to be built, I was able to go deer hunting for the first time. Yes, folks, I had a great time, and the deer did survive. I was so excited that I learned that my C brace had finally arrived. We worked on leg and brace for 4 hours at the brace company. I was a little tired, but well worth the wait. That weekend, I went on a pheasant hunting trip to celebrate. Again, the trip was a success, and all the birds have lived. My therapy continued a couple of times a week after getting the new brace to learn how to walk with it. Since this is a new device, everybody is in a learning mode. And at that time, I was only one of a handful of patients in the USA to have the C brace. So it felt good to be on the cutting edge of technology with this new brace. Initially started with 2 crutches, then I went to using 1 crutch. I'm still going to rehab 2 times a week. My goal was to get to a cane and finally walking without a supportive device. Great feeling, but I had a long ways to go. Physical therapy was still a large part of my life. Fast forward to Labor Day 2020, 3 years after West Nile virus, I am less dependent on my computer brace and walking only with the assistance of a cane. We put together a short video showing the progress from the start of my journey through Labor Day of 2020. We were amazed to see the progress that had been made. My progress is viewed in small steps with a day-to-day positive attitude. You cannot plan that far out. I continue going to the gym and pull 5 days a week, working on my endurance and stamina. In mid-October 2020, I found out I was positive for COVID pneumonia almost 3 years since my West Nile diagnosis. I ended up in ICU for 5 days before transferring to a rehab hospital to wean me off the oxygen. I was finally released to go home. Needless to say, I had to start all over again with my gym and pool work. I felt thankful and grateful that I was physically back to pre-COVID-19 and my gym routines. This has been quite the journey for me and my family. My life has been totally blessed through all of this. I know that God has a plan, and I'm just trying to live out that plan. I have so many people to thank that it'd be impossible to list all but a few. First, God for all the blessings. Then thanks to my wife, who's been my rock, and to my family, who has been there from the very beginning. To my good friends Marty and Debbie Davis, and all my friends, Compass Church, and all my church family. And to all the therapists who's worked nonstop with me to keep up all the work and efforts to see this through. Last but not least, Michael Serrano and the folks at Baker, who have been with me since my first brace. Without Michael's belief in me and the Spirit, none would have been more possible. I think of all of you, and may God be with you.